Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Thursday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Is D'Angelo Russell picking a fight with the Lakers? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everyone for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. It's always free. It's never going to be behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 22,000 subscribers are hanging out and wondering whether or not the Lakers can make it 3 in a row against the other. I mean, I've heard the Lakers called a super team, but I don't really think they should be. But the Suns, Andy, the Phoenix Suns, are following the super team model. And they are struggling just like the Lakers are. So we'll talk about that game coming up here in a minute. Want to let everybody know that today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com, Locked On NBA / Locked On NBA, and use the code, all lowercase, Locked On NBA, for a first deposit match up to $100. Andy, I said in the open that D'Angelo Russell might be picking a fight with the Lakers. And I know this based on what he's said to the media over the last 2 games when his playing time has been diminished, which is nothing.
I mean, technically speaking, what could be happening is that D'Angelo Russell is picking a fight with the media. Like, we shouldn't leave that off the table for possibilities. That D'Lo's beef isn't actually with the Lakers. It's with media and media coverage.
Dan Wojcicki of the LA Times.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Wojcicki, Brad Turner, Jovan Buha, Dave McMenamin.
They know what they did.
Roland. Like, there's a large assortment of unlikable people around D'Angelo Russell on a daily basis. These are all friends of ours. But yes, yeah. Like, still, I'm just saying, like, there's always a chance. I just want to throw out that possibility that D'Angelo Russell is happier than he's ever been with the Lakers. He just despises the fake news.
It's worth backing up here for just a second. Obviously, if you haven't missed, I guess not obvious, but for everybody else, obviously we are referencing the fact that D'Angelo Russell over the last 2 games has left the arena without speaking to the media. He did it on Saturday against the Clippers. He did it on Monday when the Lakers Sunday when they beat the Clippers. Whenever the Clippers,
they beat the Clippers. Tuesday they
beat the Raptors. Thank you. Time is a flat circle, and in both of those games, it should be noted, D'Lo played pretty well. Like, he was, had some good moments there, but minutes very much reduced. He only played 17 minutes on Tuesday against the Raptors. And so you can look at this in a couple different ways. He is not speaking to the media because he's pouting that the Lakers have cut his playing time, and he knows he's going to be asked about it a lot. And he doesn't want to answer questions. You could also say maybe he's just, doesn't. I mean, what do you expect him to say? I don't like it, but. And so rather than answer things the wrong way and make headlines and do other stuff, he's just choosing not to talk.
So that being said, though, the idea that D'Angelo Russell, let's just without, I guess, too recklessly saying this is what it is, let's just run with the premise that he is unhappy about something. There's the question of what it is. And then there's also the question of how big of a deal it actually is for the team moving forward. Because the reality is the Lakers, they've won 2 games in a row. They are back at 500. They are looking to try to build some momentum, heading out on their brief 1-game road trip to Utah, then going back at home, a home-heavy January that is advantageous in the way that it's laid out, but it's not an easy schedule in terms of opponents.
Nope.
Something like this is, if nothing else, very poorly timed for a team that is in a fragile place right now. Like, I don't even mean it like it's fragile, like they are fracturing, like there are issues in the locker room. I mean, they've lost like 10 of their last 15 games. They were several games below 500. Like they are fragile in the sense that they are vulnerable, and anything that can exacerbate that vulnerability is an issue.
It's first of all, I misspoke. It is 2 out of the last 3 games. His playing time has been significantly diminished. It wasn't the last 2. It was 2 out of the last 3.
There's also really quick too, just as far as possibilities of what could be causing this, if there is this. It's also the looming trade deadline,
right?
And D'Angelo Russell is highly aware of what the trade deadline means, because more than anybody on this team, he has been traded. Like, when I say he has been traded by every team he's ever played on, I mean literally every team D'Angelo Russell has ever played for has traded him, including, by the way, the one that he currently plays for.
Yes.
They were actually the first team to trade him to start the cycle of getting traded. So this is something that D'Lo is, I imagine, highly aware of. And even though he's obviously experienced in getting traded, you talk to players around the league, this is not a pleasant time. Like, getting traded, unless you want
he's on the block. I mean, he was signed. The minute he was signed, he was put on the block. If not by the Lakers, by fans, signed to be traded. The contract is designed to make it easy to trade him. He's got a wife and child. Like, these are very disruptive moments for players. And I think, the trade deadline thing is hard to separate from the playing time thing, because there is certainly an argument to be made that if the Lakers are going to, if he's presumed to be traded anyway, if you're going to pick someone to start to kind of winnow down their playing time, he is a natural candidate to do it, because he's going to be out of the rotation definitionally in a month anyway. I'm not really convinced that's what it is. I don't necessarily think the Lakers are laying the groundwork for trading Russell in the same way that, like if Rui comes back, presumably soon, and he's listed as, I haven't seen a listing actually for tonight's game.
I have not seen one updated.
So
for that matter, with Cam Reddish either.
He had been bumped up to doubtful on Tuesday. So at the very least, hopefully a questionable designation or something like that means he's moving in the right direction. But if his playing time is relatively limited, I wouldn't automatically assume it's because the Lakers are just assuming he's going to be traded and laying the groundwork for that kind of thing. I think, the issue with Russell is, and as I am probably as strong a supporter of D'Lo in the kind of local Lakers media as there is. I mean, I'm in that upper echelon, if not
other than maybe me.
Right. I mean, it's not hard to be in the upper echelon of D'Angelo Russell supporters, but
we didn't even need to be voted president and vice president. We just declared ourselves.
You show up to the meeting, you automatically win some sort of officership, because there just aren't enough people there.
Nope.
So, I mean, it's a reasonable debate, like, because he's got obvious deficiencies and obvious strengths that we've seen over the last couple of games. The debate about how to play D'Angelo Russell is still one that the Lakers are having, where he fits into a lineup, where if he doesn't start, where do you put him? What is the appropriate amount of playing time? So let's dig into that next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by PrizePicks, the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in up to 25 times your money. And you can pick combo projections across football and basketball with the Specials League, created specifically for projections that include 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, LeBron James and Travis Kelce at a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made and receptions. And with the PrizePicks reboot policy, your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured for NFL games, NBA games. If you have a player who exits the game in the first half, doesn't return in the second, that player gets rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with injury insurance. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use that code Locked On NBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, prizepicks.com/locked on NBA. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Reminder, the Lakers play the Suns tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific time. The Lakers are 3-0 against Phoenix this season, including the IST win, but Phoenix will have their big three, and they're playing on multiple days of rest. Catch every Lakers game on the hometown broadcast with Sirius XM on the SXM app. Search Lakers.
Okay, so I mean, I think what we're really, I am not going to be, I think D'Lo's not talking because he's upset about his playing time. I don't think he wants to answer questions about it. I don't think he likes the feeling of being on the block, and all that kind of stuff. That's my guess. I think, that is typically why, in situations like this, why players decline to speak to the media, because they just don't want to get themselves into trouble. They don't want to go through the hassle. They maybe want to send a message. Like if I'm not, they don't go talk to, Jared Vanderbilt after every game. He plays 18 minutes a night. We're talking about, I'm just guessing.
Well, the other thing too is this is something that gets noticed by media, but as far as creating a proverbial distraction, D'Lo not talking to the media creates far less of a distraction than anything he might say if he does.
Correct. Because, and look, he played a lot against the Clippers, a normal amount of minutes. He did not play much against the Raptors. So you could look at it. So those are two very different games. Why didn't he talk in one? Maybe he's just decided, you know what? There's nothing in it for me anymore. So I'm not going to talk to the media. It's just not worth it. I'm just going to get a bunch of trade deadline questions. I'm going to get a bunch of playing time questions. It might not be anything, nefarious at all. It could just be screw it. There's no upside in it for me right now in the environment. I'm just, there could be a lot of things, but I think your point is important. It doesn't really matter as long as he either doesn't create problems internally or doesn't let it impact how he plays on the court. And in the last couple games, still shaky outside shooting notwithstanding, I actually think D'Lo's played pretty well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a question of professionalism, and
Sure.
I would say it is lacking professionalism on D'Lo's part to not deal with the media. That is part of what he's getting paid $18.5 million to do.
Agreed.
That being said, though, unless D'Lo is needed to face music of some type, and he's not, which really is not the case here at all, that they won games, I doubt his teammates care much beyond what does it mean if he isn't. I seriously doubt this is something that LeBron and AD and Reeves are talking about after games. Other than unless they are concerned D'Lo's upset about something and it may affect us on the court.
Right.
That question, though, that you raised before about the idea of winnowing down his playing time because he could potentially get traded anyway. So you're taking a look at more of what the rotation may look like. If the Lakers are doing that, that's a mistake. They should not be doing that because you don't know yet who you don't know yet if you're going to be able to trade D'Lo. B, you don't know who you're going to get if you do end up trading D'Lo. And C, you don't know how long it's going to take for this theoretical trade to actually take place. So in the meantime, cutting down the minutes.
A lot of games. It's February 8th, I think, is the trade deadline. There are a lot of games between now and February 8th.
Right. And look, if it's a really big salary deal, Reeves and or Rui are not eligible to be traded for another 4 days. So there's a lot of time in between now and when D'Lo is or is not traded. And in the meantime, the Lakers need to win games, and D'Lo is one of their better players. So if they are doing this in anticipation of a trade, which, to be clear, neither of us knows that's the case, but if it is, that is a mistake. They should be playing D'Lo the minutes that they think he should be on the court and worry about how to adjust your rotation, given how many different times Darvin has changed the rotation anyway. That is a leave it for later issue. What's a seventh time changing it?
This is why I don't buy that theory as to why. I think the Lakers and Darvin are juggling. There are games when Hachimura plays a lot. There are games when Hachimura plays a little, relative to what you think he would. And I think that's what's going on here with D'Lo, because, the offense clearly operates more efficiently with less friction and all that when you have him out there, even relative to Reeves, who has been racking up a lot of assists lately. The pick and roll game is smooth. The distribution is just a little cleaner.
He's a better floor general than Reeves.
Correct. He's a true point guard, rather than Reeves, who's sort of a combo who is building into that role. And also, kind of even though D'Lo kind of probes and penetrates and stuff like that to go find his own offense, it's a different deal with Reeves. Like it's a longer process, if nothing else, with Reeves, who is also looking for the foul calls and stuff like that. So things happen a little fast with Russell. But the flip side is, the defense is problematic. It always has been. He has admitted to that being so. And, Russell is coming off both an injury and a stretch of really poor play. So, there are reasons to put him on the bench. I just think the Lakers need to. I think 17 minutes, if it becomes a trend, is too little for Russell, because even with his flaws, he's still one of their 5 best players, and they need to play their best players as much as possible.
Well, unless they keep winning games. And if they keep winning games, I guess you can make an argument that they're making it harder than it potentially could be to win the games. But if they win, there isn't a lot for either of us, or frankly, even D'Lo, to criticize. The other thing, too, to keep in mind, like, as long as D'Lo keeps playing well with whatever minutes that he's getting, while I think both of us would prefer that he's happy on both a professional and human level, just because neither one of us roots for people to be unhappy in general. Right. If he's playing well but unhappy and in ways that don't affect what goes on the court, I think everybody can live with it. I mean,
okay.
It sucks, but the truth is, all of us go through periods where we're not thrilled with our jobs. And most of us are not compensated in the way D'Angelo Russell is to be unhappy with his job. And I, on a human level, I would like to see him happy in the same way I prefer everybody be happy. But if he's not, but it doesn't affect what goes on the floor, kind of first world problems.
Right. And you talk about, like, the way it would affect the locker room is either he's inside the locker room, chirping and chattering and, saying the wrong stuff. And if he is, that'll come out quick. Like, that will get leaked fast, probably by the team. We'll want that out there so that when they trade him, it's like, or it'll come out afterwards, if nothing else. This is not the kind of thing that distractions happen when players have to answer for the behavior of other players, and they have to do stuff over and over. He's showing up and he's playing. He's at practice on time. He's not skipping. Like, people aren't going to go to the Lebron and force these guys to answer question after question as to why D'Angelo Russell's not talking after games. That's not something that they're going to have to do. I think ultimately he's in a place where he is now could be one of those guys where his playing time just kind of fluctuates. When you're a bench player, especially, there are games where it just doesn't align for you to get in as much as you might otherwise. The flow of the game operates differently and all that kind of stuff. But his absence was, I think, a real reminder of, if it's not him, if you do not have Russell on the roster, if you're going to trade him, you better bring back someone else who can handle the ball and run an offense, because you can't leave it where it's just LeBron and Reeves, and then you hope at some point in a month or 6 weeks that Gabe Vincent can step into that role as well.
And it's also worth remembering too, the offense has looked better the last couple games. D'Angelo Russell has played the last couple games. That is not likely a coincidence. And there is still nobody on this team who is more conscientious about looking to get Anthony Davis the ball than D'Lo. Like that includes LeBron, that includes Reeves. Nobody does that. I mean, this is not anecdotal. You can go look this data up. Nobody passes to Anthony Davis more than D'Angelo Russell.
Like on a permanent,
and it's important that AD be as involved as possible. So
it's interesting when you look at the lineup combinations are always just really interesting to look at. Like there are combos where D'Lo is part of a really strong group with a lot of strong results, and you can find lineups where he is part of just disaster, and then stuff that's kind of in the middle. In this sort of revamped rotation a little bit with Reeves back in the starting lineup, and then Wood instead of Jackson Hayes, like all of these things recalibrate the combinations that are on the floor. The Western Conference, Andy, is starting to separate a little bit, and this game tonight is pretty critical for the Lakers if they want to make sure they're on the good side of it. We'll talk about it next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Jace Medical, and we all use sports to escape from the crazy realities of life, but sometimes, unfortunately, real life never goes away for good, and according to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics, including amoxicillin, right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. We've seen the last few years what happens when the supply chain gets bogged down for whatever reason with whatever product. It is stressful, and thankfully, Jace Medical can help alleviate that stress. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial infections, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, among others. And there are medicines that could be really handy to have if your doctor wants to prescribe them, but for whatever reason, the access is not readily available. Visit jacemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than right now. Go to jacemedical.com and use the offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. Reminder, the Lakers play the Suns tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific time. The Lakers are 3-0 against Phoenix this season, including the IST win, but Phoenix will have their big 3, and they're playing on multiple days of rest. Catch every Lakers game on the hometown broadcast with Sirius XM on the SXM app. Search Lakers.
So the Lakers versus the Suns is an interesting game on a few levels. The Suns, I saw it referred to as, there was a headline the other day. I think it might have been Yahoo. I forget which site. But it asked, do the Lakers and Suns, are they signaling the end of the super team era? And at least, sort of traditionally defined where super teams tend to be 3 stars or even 4 as opposed to 2. The Lakers aren't a super team anymore. The Suns, however, 100%, that is the model they are working with. 3 stars, max contract guys, with thin, we shall say, supporting casts, making do with what else is available. So just first on this level, like philosophically, I find the Suns experiment to be fascinating, in part because the Lakers, even the Lakers, Andy, are pulling away from that style and going to something more like what Denver is doing with continuity and depth.
Well, for the time being, the trade rumor mill has them attached to Zach LaVine, has them attached to DeJounte Murray, has them attached to whoever else is both big name and believable for the Lakers to get. So, and we talked about this before, they went for continuity last offseason, but other than Kyrie Irving, there weren't really any non-continuity big swing options out there for the Lakers to realistically to go after. So the idea that star effery is permanently out of the Lakers system, I'm going to need a few more years before I completely believe that case has been cured.
Yes.
Phoenix, though, they're a team A that the Lakers, they need to keep beating them. And something I was thinking about, like, in terms of A, they can gain ground on them in the standings. If the Lakers win this game tonight, they will be even with Phoenix. But also, 2, because they already have the tiebreaker over the Suns. There's a baseline, I guess, floor for the Lakers in terms of making sure you are at minimum in the play-in, which is keep up with Phoenix. Because as long as you are even with Phoenix, the worst thing that can happen is, assuming you're in the play-in mix, you're there. Obviously, the Lakers are and should be shooting for higher, but like the idea of gaining ground against Phoenix, there are practical implications on a few different levels. I was also thinking too, just Phoenix is a team that it'll be interesting to see how much the Lakers can avoid some of their bad habits against, just because Phoenix, they're not a team that theoretically should force the Lakers into doing things that they aren't very good at avoiding. Like, for example, they don't generate a lot of turnovers, nor do they turn a lot of turnovers, the ones that they get, into points, nor do they get a lot of points on the break. So this is not a team that should exacerbate the Lakers' tendency to turn the ball over or struggle defending in transition. They also, too, turn the ball over a lot, which should give the Lakers an opportunity to get out in transition and to run. And I'm curious to see how much they look to do ball denial or, really press up, because Phoenix runs without a point guard. And, Devin Booker and Brad Beal and Kevin Durant are kind of all their makeshift floor generals, but it's not really what any of them do. So it'll be interesting to see if the Lakers, who like to be a really disruptive defense to begin with, if they can really push that on Phoenix to their advantage.
Yeah, I mean, the Lakers, own the season series at this point, but you look at the standings, Andy, and it is fascinating to me that the 8, 9, and 10 are three teams that you would not expect to be the 8, 9, and 10 for entirely different reasons. Houston at the 8, because Houston, they've been so bad, even with their improvements in the offseason. Dylan Brooks has been hurt. They're sitting in playoff contention, which surprises some people, I'm sure. And then Phoenix and the Lakers at 9 and 10 going into at least Wednesday night's games when we sit down to tape the show. That is not where people thought these teams would be. And, and then you look at the standings more broadly. If the goal for the Lakers is to get out of the play-in, means you got to jump up to the 6. There's a little bit of separation that's starting to happen in the Western Conference. If you look at it, Minnesota, Oklahoma City, Denver, and I guess maybe you could put the Clippers in there, are in that top tier, separated by, a game or two. In the case of Minnesota, Oklahoma City, and the Nuggets, that's just a game. The Clippers, the Kings, and the Pelicans at 4, 5, and 6 are all separated by a game and a half. And, Dallas at the 7 is 2 games behind the Clippers at the 4. But Houston, Phoenix, and the Lakers, the Lakers are a full 3.5 games behind the Pelicans, and 4 games behind the Kings. And, halfway through the season, that's not a deficit that you can't make up, but it's also not a deficit that you want to let get much bigger. Because those teams, the Pelicans are 7 games over 500. The Kings are 8 games over 500. The Clippers are 10 games over 500. These are not teams that are going to be losing a lot. Even the Mavericks, played pretty strong basketball, over the course of the season. They're 6 games over 500. That's why this homestand, beating Phoenix, making it 3 in a row, going and playing in Utah on Saturday, a really hot Utah team. They've won 8 of 10, not a gimme game, but continue. They've put themselves in a position where they have to stack up wins if they want to have a realistic chance to get out of the play-in section of the bracket.
Yeah, the way I would look at it is just they have time to make up this ground. They just don't have enough time to waste it. But if they make the most of this month, which I said before, it is not advantageous in terms of easy opponents, but it's advantageous in terms of creature comforts, they have an opportunity to get themselves closer to that mix that they were in before everything went sideways. It's just, can you make it happen?
For sure. And, I to get into that top 4, which I think was what everybody expected, but also I think where the Lakers wanted to be at the beginning of the season. Like, they need to show that they're capable of running off now 8 wins in 11 games, 10 wins in 14, something like that. It's going to take a couple of those streaks to get there. And with only 40 plus games left in the season, there aren't not a lot of time to put multiple streaks like that together. It is, I think the way you put it, it's like, it is simultaneously not time to panic, but time to get going here. So
Austin Reeves talked about this recently. There should be urgency in every single game that they play in, regardless of the context or the standings, because they should just want to win. But if you want to add the context and the standings, feel free if that's what it takes.
Yeah, Lakers, as going into Wednesday's games, are only a game ahead of the 11 and 12 seeds in the West. So they really, as much as we talk about trying to catch the teams in front of them, they need to be aware of the teams behind them, which is why the Utah game is so significant. If they lose that game, they are potentially tied with the Jazz in a spot that might even put them outside the play-in, however, temporarily. Should be a great game tonight. It is always fun to watch these sort of marquee teams, even when they're a little bit disappointing in the big picture, play against each other, because everybody tends to raise their intensity. It's a TNT game, a lot of attention on it. We will, of course, be here to recap it when it's all over. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out, see the show, and leave us questions and comments. Talk to over 22,000 subscribers. We'll see everyone after the game.